Welcome back! I'm Roy with Rugged Badger Racing and Team Parts Badger. Behind me are our two ChampCar Miatas and a stack of tires. We just got done at the 14 hours at Road Altanta and we had the opportunity to test the brand new Falken RT660 Plus tire. Here is what we found. Now, if you've been following my channel, you know we've had the opportunity to test a lot of different tires. And in the latest video, I go through why I chose the RT660 Plus after trying the RT660. Now, that wasn't without reservations. Now, we weren't concerned about performance. We know the tires are fast, and we weren't concerned about overall wear because that compound seems to last quite a while. What we were concerned about is delamination, specifically with the center tread block effectively peeling off of the tire. We experienced that a couple times with the RT660, and we're really hoping that that was solved with the RT660 Plus. Now, this is going to be our first event running two cars. We have our brand new build, an F-Class Miata, and our B-Class Miata. Now, in deciding for tires for the weekend, we needed to figure out how many, and based on prior performance, we believed we'd be able to make it through the weekend with about 10 tires. The F-Class car is about 9 seconds slower than the B-Class car, so we figured that could last the entire event, including the test day on one set, and maybe a couple extra tires for the B car. Nonetheless, we ended up buying 16 tires just to be on the safe side, and we had those heat cycled from tire rack, and delivery was pretty quick. Now, in endurance racing, you never know how much time you're actually going to get out on the track, especially with a brand new build like this. But we had a phenomenal weekend. We ended up getting 18 hours of total track time in the B car. 4 of those hours in the test day were at about 80% or so. And then in the F car, we got another 16 hours with 2 of those being at about 80%, just getting the car up to speed. So we ended up getting a lot of track time overall on the tires. Now let me dive into how they performed on the track. Now, I'd have to say the tire performed very well. We had good grip. We ran the fastest time that we had ever run at Road Altanta, and I believe the fastest time ever for a ChampCar NA or NB Miata ever at Road Altanta on the new RT660 Plus. Overall feel was great. The grip was great. There were no real surprises. When it was a little cold, the car could get a little loose and snappy, but that had more to do with the setup than that tire itself. Overall, the tire did everything I would expect of a Super 200 tire, especially one as fast as the RT660. However, we started to run into problems pretty quick. And the issue was our old friend, delamination of the center tread block, which you can actually see here where that central tread block is really pulling up and the tire has so much tread left on the edges. It's pretty unbelievable, but this center tread effectively melts. Now, during the test day, we were doing pyrometer readings, we were dialing in our pressures, and we found based on the pyrometer readings that the ideal pressure was somewhere around 24 to 26 PSI, depending on which corner the tire was on, the overall weight, and the load on that particular track. But I think some features at Road Altanta specifically were attributing to this delamination issue. So the final corner of Road Altanta is a high-speed right-hander. You're coming downhill, and you're pulling quite a bit of G, followed by another high-speed right-hander going into turn 1, where you're actually gaining camber going uphill, and you have a lot of grip, and you're really loading up the left side of the car overall. And you could actually feel it while driving if you were taking these corners at 9 tenths, 9.5 tenths, you could feel the heat really building in that tire. And when you're going all out, you could actually feel that tread pulling up. Now, what was good is you weren't losing complete grip, but you were down to about 90% of the grip of the tire. That definitely hurt our times. But more importantly, we weren't able to keep these tires alive. So pretty much every pit stop, we were changing our front left tire. Now, what we noticed when we had a brand new tire on the front left, it seemed to happen almost immediately. You would start feeling that within the first 30 minutes or so. Now, when we began taking the left rear tire and putting that in the left front, it seemed to last a little bit longer. Now, these were preheat cycled from tire rack, but it seemed that the tires that had more mileage on them on other corners of the car would actually last a little bit longer and perform better. Now on the B car, this was definitely lapping a lot faster, and it was happening literally every single stint. We were having to swap out tires. Thankfully, we brought 16. Now on the F car, it did begin to happen as well, but it happened on the left rear of that car. Now this car was in the hunt for, at one point, an overall win, and then eventually we ended up with a podium, so we were prioritizing this car. So unfortunately, this thing had to limp around with those tires as they began failing. We just had to keep them on the car. Now, of the 16 tires, we really only had one that didn't have this issue. Now, we have one of the worst examples here. And then I would say that this one is probably one of the better examples when we began driving around the issue and trying to take load off that corner. You can still see it begin to pull up, but it's not as bad as ripping the whole tread. Now on the F car, we were having to run those tires a little bit longer. We had to keep them on the car, and we noticed some of the other tread blocks as well, which you'll actually see here with this inside tread block on this tire beginning to peel up. This is one that was on the B car, moved over to the F car because we wanted to borrow one of the F car tires because it was in a little bit better shape at the time. But this absolutely melted. And again, you can see the tread block here. The overall wear of the tire is actually pretty good if it's not for this really high temperature effectively shedding of the tread. Another tire here, which this one probably has some of the most time on it, and you can see this tread just completely ripped up. And again, we have a situation where the outer tread is pretty good. Now, we could talk a little bit about setup on the cars, but we don't believe setup was the issue. So we've been running Miatas for a really long time. Me personally, I've been running them for about 22 years. Both cars were aligned prior to the event. We welded the alignment bolts so they don't move because we're used to that. They are running Delrin suspensions in both cars, except for the rear suspension is actually running poly in the F car. Now for overall alignment, we're running around 2 degrees. And I say around because we're running about 1.9, 2.1 from front to rear, but around the 2-degree mark. And when you're running the Delrin bushings, we really find that that's a pretty solid alignment overall on the car. We're also not running a lot of toe. So in the rear of this car, we're running about an 1/8 inch toe in, a little bit less than an 1/8 of an inch. In this car, we're running 3/16 toe in. Now in the front, both cars are running 3/16 toe out. And for overall caster, both cars are set to around 5.5 degrees. Now the B car was also corner weighted. We did not corner weight the F car because we have no adjustment for that overall. Now during the test day, we were also taking pyrometer readings to make sure our pressures were correct. And it really mimicked the readings we were having before when we tested the RT660, where our hot pressures were somewhere around 24 to 26 PSI, depending on which corner and how much load that had. So overall, we really don't believe setup of these cars was attributing to this issue. Now heading back to the shop, here you can see the condition of all of the other tires. Now some are substantially worse than others, and frankly that condition is really dependent on how hard that tire was driven. Now the harder the tire was driven, obviously it heated up a lot faster and the tread began to peel off. Now comparing that to what we were getting with the old RT660s, you can see we have one tire that's completely mangled, but the other tires are in relatively good condition. Now at VIR North, what we were doing was swapping that front left tire every stint with a used tire, and we're able to manage the temperatures. But that was a substantially colder race, somewhere in the 40-degree range, where Road Altanta, we were racing around 70 degrees, plus those back-to-back left-handers, I believe was building up too much heat. Now, I have to say this might be a Miata-specific issue. Now, we've experienced with both of these cars here, as well as another car that I rented with, which also was a Miata. However, there are a lot of BMW teams running this compound. They're typically running it in a 17-inch tire, but about the same width. They have substantially more weight, and they should be putting not only more heat, but more load into those tires, and they are flabbergasted when they see the types of issues that we're having. I don't entirely know why these tires are able to last so long on the BMWs, but we're struggling so much on our Miatas. Now with Road Altanta being one of the first races of the season and being one of the first teams to do an endurance race on the RT660 Plus, some people were looking for the results, overall performance of these tires, and when I told them, they were pretty shocked, and they got me in touch with the people at Falken who reached out and we had some conversations. Now I do have to say Falken has been very communicative, empathetic, and you can tell they genuinely care about racers and they care about motorsports. And I think that's a great thing from a major tire manufacturer, especially when some of the others aren't even supporting the category anymore. They're killing product lines, they're deciding not to produce tires, and it's great that Falken is committed to motorsports and is committed to racers. Now, we don't know why this issue is occurring, and we don't necessarily know how to fix it, but this has been my personal experience running our cars, and I figured it'd be valuable to share to the community. Maybe the community out there has some answers overall to what might be causing this issue. Nonetheless, I think this could be a really good tire. The grip is obviously there. The compound, when it wears normally, is a really long-lasting tire overall, and it's very economical. Hopefully, this issue can get resolved, and this could be the tire of choice moving forward. Now, hopefully we'll have the opportunity to do some additional testing and get to the bottom of this issue. Now, if you like this content, please remember to like and subscribe below, and thank you for watching.